Around through uncommon conversations. Politics, religion, finances, all the topics your grandmother told you not to discuss with friends. And now, your host, Matthew Dowling, and today's guests on Commonalities.
Well, thank you for joining me on another episode of Commonalities. I'm your host, Matt Dowling. My guest today is Representative Marla Brown of the 9th District. She's a Republican serving Lawrence County. And so it's a pleasure to have you on the program here, Representative Brown.
Thanks, Matt. I'm glad to be here.
So I wanted to start off by asking kind of some general questions so our listeners get a chance to know you. And my first question is, can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how it influenced your decision to get into the political arena, to enter politics?
Sure. So I grew up in Lawrence County. My family owned a small business in Lawrence County that I worked at from the time I was a teenager. Went to school in Erie at Gannon University, started working for UPS, and my career took flight with them. And before I started moving all over the world with UPS, I also went to Geneva College to get my master's degree in leadership. And as I said, my career started moving quite quickly with UPS as I was moving all over the world, actually, managing sales and marketing teams. My last assignment with them was in the UK and Ireland. And it was a great career. It's where I cut my teeth in management and leadership. But it was tough because my daughter was young at the time. I was pulling her in and out of school. So I moved back to the States, opened a business in Atlanta that I owned for 10 years, ended up selling that business, and was asked to take on the role as the CEO of a nonprofit for women in crisis pregnancies. And I probably would still be doing that today had it not been for the fact that my dad came down with Alzheimer's, and I wanted to be sure that I was able to spend these last few years in his life. So I moved back to PA about 5 years ago, and I moved back to a town that I did not recognize, the town that I grew up in. And because I'm the type of person that doesn't like to complain about things without doing something about it, I decided to jump in. I never really had politics in mind, but the more I thought about it, the more it actually was the perfect storm coming together, because with my background, I was taking on a giant who was, in fact, a career politician. And the people of my community, they were tired of being told the same thing and not getting any results. So I unseated a 28-year Democrat, and prior to him was a 26-year Democrat. So we turned the district red for the first time in 50 years.
Well, congratulations, and I'm sure that was not an easy feat. And so one of my next questions is one that I like to discuss with state representatives or state senators. In my service to my legislative district and my time in office, I realized that there are very unique problems that happen within each of our geographic districts. Of course, Lawrence County is different than Philadelphia, different than Fayette County, et cetera. So my question is, and I found this to be a challenge while I was in the State House, but how do you think that you can adequately, represent the interest of your district and balance that with the needs of the state as a whole?
Well, it's interesting because as I traveled the world, everywhere I went, I was trying to find something that I already had right back here at home. And I say home because Pennsylvania is home. But I think what we have is unique to the state in general, and that is that we have a hardworking population. We have tremendous culture and family values and just the sense of even our Christian beliefs. I think the state as a whole is one that I'm proud of, number one, and one that has characteristics that like I said, I couldn't find as I traveled the world. So I think there's a lot of commonalities. In where I grew up, it's a very aging population, which again is a characteristic of our state. We're aging faster than other states. But in general, I think there's more similarities than there are differences.
So, during my time in office, we experienced the pandemic, and I saw how that impacted my constituents from every walk of life. And we're now seeing some of those issues that impacted our areas during the pandemic start to kind of dissipate a little bit. So, my question is, in Lawrence County, in the district that you represent, how has the economic turnaround and so forth happened since the pandemic? And are you still seeing that your constituents are impacted in any way, business owners, et cetera?
Yeah, and I think that was the thing that rang true the most in during the campaign, because I knocked 11,000 doors because I truly wanted to understand the constituents of this area and what their biggest concerns were, and it was resounding that their number one concern was the economy, and they were hurting. This area had been hurt for quite some time, with businesses shutting down and going out of business, and the pandemic was just the nail in the coffin for us. And we've really not started to recover, to be honest with you. So this is my mantra moving forward. I really want to stimulate economic growth for my community.
Sure. So I want to get to some specific legislation that you are introducing, and you're going to be the prime sponsor of the legislation, I believe, and I know it's favorable among some Republicans and some Democrats, so you may get a little bit of bipartisan support there on that. And this legislation is regarding closed primaries and open primaries, and I know the Post-Gazette's editorial board joined more than 24 other publications around the Commonwealth that have endorsed repealing PA's closed primary election system. And so I guess maybe where we should start is, what is a closed primary, and how does that affect our voters for the listeners out there that may not be familiar with the concept?
Pennsylvania is one of only 9 states that still have closed primaries, meaning that you go in as a Republican or Democrat and you vote for your candidate in the primary. So the only 2 parties allowed to vote are Democrats and Republicans. And in my opinion, what this has caused is extremists on both ends, meaning the Republicans are putting in very far-right candidates, and the Democrats are putting in very far-left candidates. And what you're seeing is exactly the situation that's unfolding in Harrisburg. It's very difficult to find middle ground. And, it's interesting. I've been talking with David Thornburg, who is the president of Ballot PA. His father was Governor Thornburg. And he said, my dad always believed that the best way for politics to work is when you have people that are closer to the middle on both sides. And that's really what I think opening the primaries to allow independents and unaffiliated voters to vote will produce. It'll, in general, produce a better candidate.
And so this isn't the first time that this legislation has floated around Harrisburg. I know in my time period, our majority leader, Dave Reed, Representative Dave Reed, he was a fan of this legislation. I don't recall if it was actually introduced at that point in time, but I know it has been discussed before. So is there any history to your bill, and, you know, is it something that's been considered within recent history in the General Assembly?
So it's my understanding, and again, I'm new to the legislature, but it's my understanding that yes, it's come up repeatedly. But I think if there were ever a good chance of getting it through, it would be this year. While the Democrats are in control of the House, this is something they are also pushing. And interestingly, their reason for pushing it is that they've continued to lose people to the Democratic Party, and they see this as an opportunity to be encouraging those independents to vote for a Democratic candidate and therefore move toward the Democratic side. But in fact, we know that most independents, in fact, 50% of them are veterans, and 80% of them are typically conservative. So it's my opinion, we as Republicans should be using this for the same opportunity to open our arms to independents and say, look, we want you to help us choose a candidate that you can believe in that will encourage you to vote Republican values.
Now, these independents or unaffiliated individuals, they make up about, if I remember correctly, about 10% of the state's registered voters. Is that a correct assumption?
So it's 1.1 million people in PA that are taxpayers, and in my opinion, have the right to vote. In my district, it's a little higher than 10%. It's 12% of the population registered independents, or 6,000 voters in Lawrence County are registered independents.
So, you know, I think another point that is needs to be made is the fact that, you know, in many races, the primaries are where the election is won or lost. And in my race and in your race, I was the first Republican in my seat for over 50 years. You have the same kind of situation where you are. But there are a lot of our colleagues that get elected in the primary and win a very contested primary, and then they really don't have opposition because their county leans either blue or red as the situation may happen. So, you know, is that a point that people who are passionate about repealing the closed primary election system, is that a point that they make?
Yes, well, of course. But I will tell you, you know, in my primary, so I was a newcomer, and I wasn't necessarily the Republican pick, only because I didn't know anyone, and so it was interesting that it worked out, but realistically, there was another candidate, and that's what made my primary a very close race. There were actually three of us running. But it was the independents then in the general that pulled me through.
Sure. So, you know, I want to discuss where your legislation is in the legislative process. And, you know, for our listeners that aren't as familiar with the legislative process, They may not be political hacks. They may not realize that, bills are introduced, voted on 3 times, in a bicameral system that we have. Then it goes over to the other chamber, follows the same process there, and then, goes to the governor. So sometimes it really does take time for legislation to be passed, regardless of what the topic is. And you also have to have your chairman's blessing to get it through a committee, and in whoever the majority party who's making the calendars, kind of blessing that it moves on the House floor. So why don't you discuss where your legislation is in the process right now, and then also, what you anticipate. Do you think this will be a fast-moving bill or not?
So interestingly, I introduced this bill, as did another legislator on the Democratic side. Both have received co-sponsorship, bipartisan co-sponsorship. So now we have these 2 isolated bills on each side. So probably what I'm going to do, which is going to be the best way to get it at least through the committee, is to merge with the Democratic bill so that we can get it through the committee. So the committee is going to have to decide that this is legislation that they want to push forward. And then at the same time, there's growing interest on the Senate side. So there may, in fact, be some legislation introduced simultaneously on the Senate side. So hopefully that'll be happening in the near future as well, so that we can get it through both.
So, if you're able to accomplish this goal, I want to ask kind of 2 questions about, political influence and also the cost of elections. So we'll start with political influence. Do you think that open primaries could weaken the influence of our political parties and kind of make the political parties a little bit less relevant?
I don't know about making them less relevant. But I do think, as we started talking about in the beginning of the podcast, that it helps to surface a less radical candidate, because again, the parties seem to be picking those that are most extreme, and we've seen that play out, at least in our own house. But no, I don't think they will or should become less relevant. I would hope, though, that it would help surface an overall better candidate that can get more done and work across the aisle better.
So, I'm going to ask the next question and maybe talking out of both sides of my mouth, because I, for a long time, have been a fan of campaign finance reform, both at the federal level and at the state level. It really worries me when elections cost the amount that they do. I know my first election was over $550,000. And again, we were trying to take a Democrat's seat. So it was extremely expensive. But you have to start worrying about what is the influence to the people that, or of the people that pay for those elections. And then I said I'm talking out of 2 sides of my mouth, because I now do political consulting work. So while I do believe as a conservative Republican that we should be pushing through some finance reform, but I love sending mailers for people, so that pays my bills. That said, do you think it's going to be more or less expensive, or will we see no difference in the cost to get elected if we have open primaries?
I mean, that's hard to say, but I would think just based upon what we've seen in the past, Democrats will outspend Republicans 7-1. So I'm not sure that that's going away soon. But again,
Sure.
I'm new to the process, and I just from my personal experience, it was my first time running, and my campaign cost me $750,000. So
Sure.
it's a very pricey situation.
Sure. And, I never wanted to see, our legislators have elections that are so expensive that, you only have, you only have people that are either recruited and picked by the party, and by the people that, are financing things, or you have people that are independently wealthy. I don't know that if our House or Senate was made up of just those demographics, if they'd be able to identify as well with the average Pennsylvanians. And that's one of the things that, like I said, I've always been a supporter of. So, my final question on this piece of legislation is, are there any potential drawbacks to an open primary system? And basically, what are the talking points of those who oppose this legislation?
So the first thing I heard of, and it was in fact from a Republican chairperson, was that it would just make it easier for, quote, the Democrats to cheat. Which in my mind is just absurd, because if they want to cheat, they could cheat right now by doing the same thing. Rather than being registered as an independent, they can change their party registration to a Republican and vote.
And we all know people that have done that for,
Yes, of course. But
so,
that's the biggest concern that I've heard.
And that's kind of interesting, because I don't know that that's, it's something that is more likely, because, like we said, it's already being done right here in Pennsylvania, and I know right here in Fayette County. So we have to get a break in to recognize our sponsors, and then we'll come back. When we come back, I want you to tell people a little bit about your contact information, about how they could get a hold of you if they're interested in doing so, as well as some of the services and things that your office is able to offer to constituents. So we're going to get that quick break in, and we'll be right back here on Commonalities.
You're listening to Commonalities, where guests find common ground through uncommon conversations. We'll be back after this brief break to recognize our sponsors.
I'm Melinda Delarose. As an assistant district attorney, I've protected Fayette County families and fought to uphold our constitutional rights. As a prosecutor and trusted local attorney, I've provided victims of crime with a strong voice and put criminals behind bars. My pledge to you as judge is to follow the law, always maintain the highest ethical standards, and to run a courtroom that's respectful of your time and tax dollars. I'm Melinda Delarose, asking for your vote for judge.
Paid for by friends of Melinda Delarose.
Nestled in the heart of the Laurel Highlands, the Christian W. Clay Winery and Ridge Runner Distillery offer handcrafted wines and spirits using locally sourced grapes and ingredients. Stop by our Chalk Hill, Pennsylvania tasting rooms, located just across the street from each other, or pick up a bottle at our wine cellar on Route 40, the National Road.
Celebrate all the mothers in your life on Saturday, May 13th from 1 to 5 p.m. at the Christian W. Clay Winery for our Moms and Mimosas event, with live music by Josh Ritchie. Then walk over to the distillery to savor our summer cocktails.
For more information about the Christian W. Clay Winery, call 724-439-3424. And for Ridge Runner Distillery, call 724-434-6659. Christian Clay Winery and Ridge Runner Distillery, the Laurel Highlands' premier purveyors of locally made wine and spirits.
When it comes to buying a home, what you see isn't exactly what you get. That's why home buyers should call Dave Dowling at Grandview Inspections at 724-208-4108. You'll see colorful flowers, freshly painted walls, granite countertops, gleaming hardwood floors, and other touches. What you can't see is the cracks, ancient plumbing, dangerous wiring, or broken appliances that might be revealed when you hire a home inspector. And when it comes to home inspectors, knowing yours has the qualifications and experience needed should be your number one concern. Dave Dowling with Grandview Inspections is an architectural engineer with over 30 years of commercial construction experience and hundreds of inspections under his belt. A home inspection is an opportunity for you to hire an expert to walk through the home and prepare a report outlining the home's major components, what needs immediate attention, and what will require maintenance after you move in. Your home is one of your biggest investments, so make sure your investment is everything you hoped it to be. Call Dave Dowling at Grandview Inspections at 724-208-4108.
Are you enjoying the program you're listening to? Support Commonalities and help keep us on the air by making a donation of $5, $10, or $25, or any amount you feel comfortable sharing online at donate.commonalities.online. Again, that is donate.commonalities.online on the World Wide Web. Buy our host a cup of coffee or help pay for airtime at donate.commonalities.online.
Thanks for staying with us through the break. I'm your host, Matt Dowling, here on Commonalities, and my guest today is Representative Marla Brown. She's a freshman legislator from Lawrence County representing the 9th District, and she is a registered Republican, first Republican to hold her seat in, I believe you had said, Marla, 5 decades or more?
Yes. Yes.
Well, we wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about where your office is, how people can get in touch with you, and some of the services that your office is working on, and then also you could throw in there any other legislative priorities that you have in the near future, other than getting our primary elections resolved here.
Okay. So I do represent the 9th Legislative District, and that's Lawrence County. It's as far west as you can go. We butt up against the Ohio border. But you can reach me on email at www.rep, Brown, M-A-R-L-A, thecolor.brown.com. My Harrisburg number is 717-783-2017, and my local phone 724-498-4397. Also, connect with me on Facebook, Rep. Marla Brown. I would love to hear from you.
Now, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about other legislation, but before we get to that, since you just gave out your contact information, is there anything that people that are in support of the legislation we've already discussed of fixing those closed primaries, is there a way they can send a letter to anyone or show support for the legislation? What would help you out?
Well, I think it's always great to contact your local representative and let them know you're interested so that they can get involved. I think most, if not all, legislators are in this to do what's best for their constituents. So they really do want to hear from you. I know that I listen to what my constituents want, and I definitely take that to heart when voting on issues.
So if you were listening on 590 WMBS, those representatives would be Representative Charity Grimm-Krupa, who took the seat that I previously represented, and Representative Ryan Warner. You could also send a letter of support to Senator Pat Stefano, and or you could do a quick Google search of your area to be able to find who represents you, and all their contact information is listed on the legislative page, which is very long, legislative.state.pa.us. So just Google it because it's too long to read. But you can do a search of who represents you if you don't know, and send some kind of an email or letter of support for Marla's new bill or legislation that she is introducing. So my final question here, and we have just about 2 minutes left in the program. If there's any other legislative priorities that you plan on taking on very soon, you could share those with us as well.
Well, I'm continuing to fight for our children in our schools and anything that would spur economic growth. I've been named as a subcommittee chairwoman to the small business subcommittee of the Commerce Committee. So I have introduced some legislation that would give more parental rights in their children's education. And I'm looking for continuous ways to cut the spending, the outrageous spending that's going on in Harrisburg, so that we can restart this economy and put people in a better position than they are right now.
Sure, and cutting wasteful spending in Harrisburg is no easy feat. No one wants their personal project or their pork that's in the annual budget to be cut, and when everyone's advocating for their own projects and spending, it gets very tenuous there in the month of June in Harrisburg. So I wish you the best of luck on that, Representative Brown. I want to thank you for being a guest today on Commonalities. Again, my guest today was Representative Marla Brown. And any last word or final thought you have today, Marla?
No, I just appreciate your time and look forward to helping to make a change for Pennsylvania, a positive change for Pennsylvania.
Well, best of luck for the rest of your freshman term here, and thanks again for being on Commonalities. Have a great day.
This has been Commonalities, a show where guests find common ground through uncommon conversations. Copyright 2022 Coordinated 360. All public rebroadcasts should be done with prior written approval from Matthew Dowling. All requests should be sent to info@coordinated360.com. Thank you for listening to Commonalities.
Are you looking for an adventure right in your own backyard? Do you crave delicious food, refreshing drinks, and luxurious accommodations? Then look no further, or listen rather, than All in a Day's Drive, the podcast that takes you on a journey through the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, history, the outdoors, hiking, skiing, shopping, and more. From the stunning landscapes and historic landmarks to the world-renowned attractions, we'll show you the beauty and wonder that Pennsylvania has to offer. All of this and more in just one day's drive. What are you waiting for? Hop in the car and join us for an adventure you'll never forget.
Hi there, this is Matt Dowling, and I'm absolutely thrilled to announce the arrival of my new podcast on Thursday mornings following the 11 a.m. news on WMBS Radio 590 AM and 101.1 FM. Don't miss out. Learn about tourism in Pennsylvania by listening on your computer, iPhone, or AM/FM radio.
This has been All in a Day's Drive. Don't waste a moment of time. Start planning your adventure in Pennsylvania today. All in a Day's Drive is a production of Coordinated 360. All rights reserved. For more information, visit www.coordinated360.com or www.matthewddowling.com. Portions of today's program may have been underwritten in some way by the attraction, location, or venue discussed on the show. Rebroadcast of this program may be done free of charge for the use of promoting tourism in southwestern Pennsylvania.
When it comes to buying a home, what you see isn't exactly what you get. That's why home buyers should call Dave Dowling at Grandview Inspections at 724-208-4108. You'll see colorful flowers, freshly painted walls, granite countertops, gleaming hardwood floors, and other touches. What you can't see is the cracks, ancient plumbing, dangerous wiring, or broken appliances that might be revealed when you hire a home inspector. And when it comes to home inspectors, knowing yours has the qualifications and experience needed should be your number one concern. Dave Dowling with Grandview Inspections is an architectural engineer with over 30 years of commercial construction experience and hundreds of inspections under his belt. A home inspection is an opportunity for you to hire an expert to walk through the home and prepare a report outlining the home's major components, what needs immediate attention, and what will require maintenance after you move in. Your home is one of your biggest investments, so make sure your investment is everything you hoped it to be. Call Dave Dowling at Grandview Inspections at 724-208-4108.
I'm Melinda Delarose. As an assistant district attorney, I've protected Fayette County families and fought to uphold our constitutional rights. As a prosecutor and trusted local attorney, I've provided victims of crime with a strong voice and put criminals behind bars. My pledge to you as judge is to follow the law, always maintain the highest ethical standards, and to run a courtroom that's respectful of your time and tax dollars. I'm Melinda Delarose, asking for your vote for judge.
Paid for by friends of Melinda Delarose.
Nestled in the heart of the Laurel Highlands, the Christian W. Clay Winery and Ridge Runner Distillery offer handcrafted wines and spirits using locally sourced grapes and ingredients. Stop by our Chalk Hill, Pennsylvania tasting rooms, located just across the street from each other, or pick up a bottle at our wine cellar on Route 40, the National Road.
Celebrate all the mothers in your life on Saturday, May 13th from 1 to 5 p.m. at the Christian W. Clay Winery for our Moms and Mimosas event, with live music by Josh Ritchie. Then walk over to the distillery to savor our summer cocktails.
For more information about the Christian W. Clay Winery, call 724-439-3424. And for Ridge Runner Distillery, call 724-434-6659. Christian Clay Winery and Ridge Runner Distillery, the Laurel Highlands' premier purveyors of locally made wine and spirits.
Is your business using analog strategies in a digital marketing world? If so, then contact Matthew or Rebecca Dowling at Coordinated 360 for a professional consultation, where we bring in-depth knowledge and functional expertise with a holistic perspective. Coordinated 360 provides digital marketing, paid ad and media buying services, web design, social media management, video production, and more for businesses, organizations, and political campaigns. With decades of experience, Matt and Becky at Coordinated 360 can help you craft your unique message and share it with the world. For a no-risk media evaluation and recommendations, call 724-320-2212 or visit us online at www.coordinated360.com. Find us also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or email info@coordinated360.